Thank you so much. One of the questions that raised against the Nubians in their rejection of building any dams on the Nile is that they are against development, taking dams or building dams for granted as developmental. In fact, this is absolutely wrong. You don't build a dam and then you come to development. You come to development first, and then after that, building dams should come to answer the question of power for the named developmental project and the question of water for a named project, agricultural project. And this is exactly what happened before in Sudan. When the British rule, colonial rule, decided or thought of growing cotton in Sudan as raw material for their textile factories in northern England, they first made tests on the soil to see if that will grow the kind of cotton they wanted. They made these tests, then they made the social survey on the people to see if there was enough manpower to grow cotton and if they were ready culturally to accept such an industry. Then, when they found the people less than the manpower they wanted, they brought people from other areas of Sudan. Even they went to the extent of bringing people from Nigeria. Then they sent about 50 Sudanese people to be trained in England as inspectors to train the farmers. Then they distributed the land on them. They thought of treating the cotton there first, and then they wanted to build 25 factories for this purpose. They came with two questions. From where are we going to get power? And from where are we going to get water for irrigation? By pumping water from the Nile? By furnace power generation? At that moment, after thinking of the developmental project, and when they were faced with these questions, the answer led them to build the Sinnar Dam. When they started building the Sinnar Dam, they knew how much water they wanted. They even dug the canals, and they trained the farmers. And each farmer was fully aware and well trained, waiting for the water to come. The factories and the workers in the factories were trained. And after that, the dam was built. In the cases of the series of dams being built now, no mention of any developmental project. The government does not mention anything. Even Osama Abdul cannot mention a single development project, either to be irrigated by the water or to be operated by the power. So, building dams is not prerequisite of development, no. First, you think of the development project, and then from there you say, because we need water for this project and we need power for this project, we are going to build so and so dam. Rather than to say, I'm going to build a dam, and then after that, I'm going to do development. No, you don't do it that way. But the other way around. Further, if these dams are meant for the development of the areas which will be flooded, what is the point of completely depopulating the areas? We have an experience. The area from Aswan up to Kul was completely depopulated. There is no development without manpower. When you completely depopulate an area, then it is just, you say that it is doomed and it will never be developed, because you can't develop area with demons. You need people. So when you take the people far away from their homeland, you can't come back and claim that because I'm going to develop this area. No. This is self-defeated argument. And what we say when we hear after that, the areas which have been depopulated are going to be repopulated, but people other than their historical owners. They take the Nubians far away from their homes. But we hear that, and we have already read statements on Egyptian websites that there were agreements to resettle Egyptian peasants in the Nubian lands. This is utterly cannot be accepted. Furthermore, the Nile River, is it building dams on the Nile? Is it feasible developmentally? This is sedimentation river. 250 million cubic meters of siltation every year. The people of Halfa, in their new resettlement, the dam of Hashim al-Gibra was built for them. Now this dam has lost 85% of its capacity for siltation. And we don't know how much has the high dam lost in these 40 years. Building dams on the Nile are not good. And if building these dams will end in only 50 years to end up with the same result, then building dams is not strategic on such rivers like the Nile. Are they being built to save the high dam in Egypt such demise? We just ask and raise such questions. Furthermore, the government are giving wrong information and misleading its people. For instance, they say that the Merowe Dam, and it is not Merowe, it has nothing to do with Merowe, it is Merowe, and it is located 45 kilometers away from Merowe. It has nothing, but this shows the way the government runs the country. This dam of Merowe, they claim that will produce 1,200 megawatt. This is nonsense, because you have power installed and you have energy installed. Power installed, you have 10 turbines, with each one of them producing 125 megawatt. So you multiply that by 10, you end up with 1,250 megawatt. But no dam on the earth works. The whole turbines. They are going to work only 5 of them. 3 will be ready, and 2 on maintenance, in maintenance. So only 5 of them will be working, and that gives us only 600 megawatt, not 1,000. The government is telling the people that the area will be flooded, will be only so and so villages. But the truth is that the technical teams which are mainly Western European companies, are marking the boundary and the border of the reservoir. It starts from Dungura. They are not telling the people the truth. And the result will be that the area from Aswan up to Dungura will completely be depopulated. And you know to where? The Nubians now, the plans, and these are secrets, but Sudan does not know any secrets, as we all know. The Nubians will be relocated in Al-Rahad area in the Bhutan. And at the same time, the Nubians will never, not only the Nubians, all the Sudanese people will never have the opportunity to have the compensation the people of Halfa got. But the Halfawin now are suffering. If that good compensation ends up in this failure, so what about less compensation? So the point is that all the thing is not telling of any bright picture. The dam units spent $5 million on a TV series about Osman Dini. They haven't spent $10,000 on archaeological excavation. I work with the British Museum in the language, archaeological and language survey in the Manasir area. And I was with Herman Bell in charge of the language and ethnographic team that surveyed the area of the Nahas. Underfunded, all of them are underfunded, but money is being spent there. We don't want to talk about the same dam building units, building airports, building military bases, and building hospitals. We don't know what sort of dam building units this. So, in a nutshell, the whole question of building these dams is a big question mark. No transparency, playing tricks, misleading the people, giving the wrong figures. That's what we are trying to fight. It is a noble cause. It is not only about Nubia or Nubians. This is a national cause. It is about disintegrating and setting down Sudan piece by piece. To end this session, let me tell you of what happened on the 13th of June. Early in that day, a small and tiny congregation of people in a remote village called Jadi. Probably most of you, if not all of you, haven't heard of this name. They decided to lead a demonstration against building Kaibar Dam. There, at a place called Kidintakar, and Kid literally means rock, but figuratively in Nubia, it means mountain. Takar means strait, so we can call the mountain strait. In that strait, a firing squad was holding an ambush for those people. Because they climbed the mountain there, and when the people came, they fired on them. They used doshka. When you fire a doshka, the entry opening is just a small slit, but the exit opening is very huge. 4 young people were shot dead there. One of them only 18 years old, a kid. And this kid, Muhammad Faqih, was the only child of his parents. His father works in Saudi Arabia. When I was in jail, he came to mourn his child in their home village. I met him in Khartoum on his way back to Saudi Arabia. And then I asked him, how could you bear the idea that your only child is dead? His answer was very shocking to me. He said, when that happened, it was like I was connected with divinity by a sort of spiritual umbilical cord. I felt peaceful, and I felt that God would never allow such horrible thing to happen without a good reason. And that kept me from being mad. All the way back to Sudan, I kept thinking of losing my only child. And I kept thinking that God would have never allowed such horrible things without good reason. The more I think that way, the more I became closer to divinity. It was divinity that saved me. And then I asked him, are you seeking revenge? He said, no, I'm not seeking revenge. Are you seeking justice? He said, earthly justice. No, I'm not counting on that. I said, what about heavenly justice? He said, I leave it to God. I'm not in the position to tell God what to do. And then I said, are you going like that, forgetting all about it? He said, no. If my people call us to fight, I will come back to fight. And I said, to take revenge for yourself? He said, not for my son. For what? And then he gave me the answer that proved that he was a true Nubian. He said, for the land. And then I asked him, can I have your mobile telephone so that we keep in contact while we are in Saudi Arabia? And then he gave me another shocking answer. He said, I don't have any mobile. Even in Saudi Arabia, I'm not having a mobile phone. To understand that, you need to work hard your imagination. This was a very simple man, a farmer, who should have spent all his life digging and saving his land. But marginalization has taken him away to Saudi Arabia, leaving back his wife and his only child to be killed in that way. This should never be forgiven, and we should never leave that to pass like that. No way for us to forget that, not because like Nubian blood is not water. Any human blood is not water. Man, a human being should not be killed with cold blood like that. This killing, in fact, is part of mass killing that has been going in other parts in Sudan. In southern Sudan, in Nkasana, Nuba Mountains, Eastern Sudan, and now in Darfur. This is the cycle of marginalization spreading to Nubia. One thing that we the Nubians should tell them that, no, this will be the end of it all. It is not going like that. And we should prove that. Not because we the Nubians, because we the Nubians will close the circle of marginalization. It started with Southern Sudan, it spread to Nuba Mountains, to Nkasana, to Eastern Sudan, to Darfur. The circle is closing in Nubia. And this is our historical mission. We should fight for this. And this regime should be brought to an end. And I'm telling you, and I've told all the people I've been telling, even John Garang, I told him, don't negotiate with this regime. If they are going to take you to the Hague to stay the rest of your life there, those people are not fit for any kind of partnership except corruption. No partnership. should be calling for regime change. No negotiation with this regime. Regime change. And this is not the platform to talk about that. I'm sure some people are thinking of inviting me to deliver such a speech. I'm ready for it. I will see. Anyway, let's come back to the video. By this, we come to an end to the fourth session, and I thank you for keeping your mobile phone switching off, and I ask you to keep them switching off to the end of this great open day. Thank you.